You have walked away from connections that others would kill to have. You have chosen silence when the world demanded performance. And somewhere in the back of your mind, a voice whispers that this withdrawal is weakness, that you are running, that you should be out there living. But here is the truth they never tell you. Your solitude is not collapse, it is coronation. This is the Hermit King's throne, and you have been sitting on it all along. Welcome to Power and Myth. There is a pattern in the INFJ experience that psychology calls introversion and society calls antisocial, and you have felt as a kind of gravitational pull towards emptiness, not the emptiness of depression, though it can be mistaken for that. This is the emptiness that mystics and monks have sought for millennia, the space where noise stops and something older begins to speak. You withdraw not because people exhaust you, though they do. You withdraw because there is work that can only be done alone, and some part of you has always known this. The Hermit archetype is not about rejecting the world. It is about temporarily leaving it to retrieve what the world needs but cannot find for itself. The lantern you carry into your solitude is not for you. It is for those who will follow. But first, you must light it in darkness. This is what separates the Hermit King from ordinary isolation. Isolation is passive. It happens to you. You become disconnected through circumstance, through hurt, through the slow erosion of belonging. But the Hermit King's withdrawal is sovereign. It is chosen. You look at the noise, the performance, and the endless shallow connections, and you say, "Not for me, not right now. I have something to attend to that requires silence." And in that choice, there is a kind of power people who have never walked away cannot understand. They think you are hiding. They do not realize you are building. You are in the sacred dark, doing the inner work that will eventually become the gift you bring back. Every king needs a wilderness season. Every depth requires descent. The INFJ who withdraws is not running from power, they are reclaiming it from a world that taught them their worth was measured in how much they could give to others. Here is the moment you will recognize. You are at a gathering. The conversation is fine, the people are fine, everything is fine, and yet beneath your skin there is a rising panic that has nothing to do with social anxiety and everything to do with the feeling that you are wasting time. That somewhere in the quiet of your own space, something is waiting to be understood or created or integrated, and every moment you stay here performing normalcy is a moment stolen from that deeper work. So you leave, you make an excuse, or you simply disappear. And the relief when you close your door behind you is not the relief of escape. It is the relief of return. You have come home to yourself. This is the hermit's territory, and it is not loneliness you feel in these moments, it is sovereignty. But let us hold the shadow here, because the Hermit King walks a blade's edge, and it is easier than you think to fall from sovereign solitude into something darker. There is a version of this withdrawal that is not coronation but abdication, when you retreat not to do inner work but to avoid outer reckoning. When the silence becomes not a generative space but a hiding place. When you tell yourself you are choosing solitude, whilst what you are actually choosing is safety from being seen, from being challenged, from being wrong. Jung understood that every archetype contains its shadow, and the hermit's shadow is the one who withdraws so completely that they forget why they withdrew in the first place. They become the isolated mystic who has wisdom but will not share it. The wounded king refuses to heal because the wound has become his identity. The INFJ who mistakes their need for depth for permission to abandon all surface connection, forgetting that even the deepest well must eventually meet the sky. This shadow expresses itself in particular ways. You ghost people who love you because intimacy requires a level of presence you are not willing to give. You frame your unavailability as spiritual when it is actually self-protection. You cultivate a persona of mysterious depth, whilst beneath it you are simply afraid of being ordinary, of being known in your humanness rather than your archetype. The Hermit King shadow is the conviction that you are too evolved for mundane connection, that your inner world is so rich that the outer world has nothing to offer. And this is where the sovereignty curdles into superiority. The throne becomes a fortress. The lantern you carry illuminates only your own path, and you forget that the hermit's purpose is not eternal withdrawal, but eventual return. So how do you know the difference? How do you distinguish between the sacred solitude that restores and the isolation that slowly calcifies the soul? The answer lies in what happens in the silence. The Hermit King does not withdraw to do nothing. They withdraw to integrate, to process what they have absorbed from the world, to alchemize pain into understanding, confusion into clarity, exhaustion into renewed purpose. Jung called this individuation, the lifelong process of becoming whole by engaging with all the parts of yourself that you have disowned or never knew existed. And individuation requires solitude, not permanent solitude, not solitude as a lifestyle, but periods of withdrawal where the inner work can happen without distraction. The INFJ who enters this kind of solitude does not emerge diminished. They emerge with something to give. They have been to the underworld and returned with language for what they found there. This is the hermit as healer. This is the king as servant. The power lies not in staying on the mountain, but in knowing when to descend. There is a reason this pattern is mythic rather than modern. Every tradition has its version of the necessary withdrawal. The Buddha under the Bodhi tree, Christ in the wilderness, Odin hanging from Yggdrasil, Inanna descending to the underworld. These are not stories about isolation for its own sake. They are stories about what can only be learned alone. The insight that requires you to step outside ordinary consciousness and enter a liminal space where transformation is possible. The INFJ who withdraws into what we might call Sigma solitude is participating in this ancient pattern, whether they know it or not. They are living the hermit's path. And the world will call them antisocial or avoidant or cold, because the world has forgotten that some truths can only be retrieved in silence, that some gifts can only be forged in solitude, that sovereignty is not something granted by others. It is something you claim by knowing who you are when no one is watching. What makes this particularly complex for the INFJ is that you are wired for connection. You feel others deeply. You absorb their emotions, their needs, their unspoken pain. The empath's curse, and so your withdrawal carries guilt that the natural hermit never experiences. You feel you should be available. You feel selfish for needing this much alone time. You worry that your solitude is hurting those who love you, and sometimes it is. But here is the paradox. The more deeply you feel others, the more essential your solitude becomes. Because if you do not withdraw to process what you have absorbed, you will be overwhelmed by it. The Hermit King is not fleeing connection. He is preserving his capacity for it. He knows that if he does not retreat to his mountain regularly, he will have nothing left to give when he returns to the village. This is not selfishness. This is survival, and it is the opposite of what the world has taught you about love, availability, and being a good person. The power you reclaim in this solitude is not power over others, it is power over yourself. The ability to say, I will not be consumed by what I cannot control. I will not spend my energy managing others' emotional states at the expense of my own integration. I will not perform connection when what I need is silence. And this kind of power, this sovereign self-knowledge, is what allows you to engage with the world on your terms rather than the world's terms. When you return from your hermit's cave, you are not the same. You have touched something in the dark that changed you, and those who know you will feel it even if they cannot name it. You have reclaimed your throne. You have remembered that your solitude is not exile, it is reign. If you recognized yourself in this video, you are in Hermit King territory. And that means you have work to do that no one else can do for you. Tell me in the comments, when was the last time you claimed your solitude as power rather than apologizing for it? When did you last sit on your throne without guilt, Subscribe if you want to keep exploring what it means to live these archetypes with intention and honour rather than confusion. This is Power and Myth. This is where INFJs come to be named. You are not too much, you are not too solitary, you are exactly what you need to be. Until next time, find your power, know your myth.